guy with a little bit of a hot pepper slider.
Thank you. Call to order the April 8th Planning and Development Committee meeting. We'll start with calling the roll.
St.Charles.
Here.
Folks.
Here.
Bongard.
Here.
Muntz.
Here.
Lencioni.
Here.
Gem.
Here.
Petrilla.
Here.
Werbaugh.
Here.
Fessner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Thank you. Then we have one item on the omnibus vote. I'm looking for a
Move for
motion.
approval.
I've got a motion by Munz and a second by Gem. Please call the roll.
Folks.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Muntz.
Here. Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Werbaugh.
Yes.
Fessner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Sulkaitis.
Yes.
Thank you. Before moving on to item A, this is a continued item, and I want to explain for people here, at the discretion of the chair, this is not a public hearing. I've made the decision to, because there were a lot of people here, it was brand new in consideration, to allow public comment. Public comment's been made, so I want everybody to know that this is not a public hearing. It will not be public comment tied specifically to this agenda item. Anybody who has anything to say, there is absolutely time for public comment on number 5 at the end of the meeting, but I wanted everybody to understand, not a public hearing. I allowed it last time, and comments were made, so thank you very much. With that, please welcome Heather.
Thank you. The first 3 agenda items you have before you this evening were all presented at the March 11th meeting, and per the vote of City Council, all of those items were tabled. There is not any new information being presented tonight. Those are just being represented to City Council for official vote or consideration and direction. All 3 of the items are tied together, and unfortunately, Director Conley was unable to be here tonight, but both myself and Director Colby are here to present the items, the first being the temporary closure of Walnut Avenue from April 15th through October 31st. The second is the license agreement for outdoor dining with CNA Management Group for Flagship on the Fox. And then the third item is the temporary license agreement for the bus parking and loading zone for the Arcata Theater. So with that, I will turn it back over to the chair.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Jamie, second from Mark. Please call the roll.
Excuse me, there's room for conversation.
I have a motion and a second. Would you like to make?
Right, yeah, there's room for conversation after a second, so that's Robert Rules of Order.
The motion has been made and seconded.
Right. So is the attorney here, the city attorney?
No, City Attorney Peppers is not here this evening.
So where do we get legal guidance?
You can ask your questions, and I'm happy to provide any commentary.
So there's room, after you make a second, there's room for Robert's rules to ask questions.
We have time right now.
So my question is, I had a question last time, the 2018 Illinois Accessibility Code, do we have confirmation that Walnut Avenue is 100% in compliance, and is someone willing to put that in writing?
Well, we did review all of the items in regards to both code as well as ADA access, and everything is compliant with our code as it stands.
Everything is in compliance with ADA code,
correct.
So we can put that in writing. Yep. So we have reassurance. Okay. And then the other thing, I just want to make a comment that I did meet with Chris Curran of Graceful Ordinary. We had some conversations about something long-term and that is permanent, so we're not doing this every year. So I thought we had some pretty good conversations, and we were collaborating in good faith, so I'm hoping to continue that. But if we're going to go on Walnut Avenue, to me, that is not indicative of collaborating in good faith. But I'm not going to repeat everything I said the last time. You can go back to my points from a month ago. So.
Other comment? I have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Folks.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Muntz.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
No.
Werbaugh.
No.
Fessner.
Yes.
Weber.
No.
Sulkaitis.
No.
That motion passes 5-4. So with that, we will be considering B, recommendation to approve a temporary license agreement between the City of St. Charles and CNA Management.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Jamie and a second by Bob. Please call the roll.
Folks.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Muntz.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
No.
Werbaugh.
No.
Fessner.
Yes.
Weber.
No.
Sulkaitis.
No.
That motion passes. Moving on to C, recommendation to approve a temporary license agreement between the City of St. Charles and STC Arcata LLC.
Move for approval?
Second?
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Bob.
I have a question.
Yes, absolutely. Alderman Weber?
I just wanted to understand the fee structure in this. How did we come up to this fee structure again?
Yeah, the fee structure is based on the square footage equivalent of the space for outdoor dining, which is based on the rate for the plaza.
So what's the square footage of that we're allowing for the buses then?
It's the square footage footprint of the bus parking area.
So it's 3 spots, it's what, like 12 by 86 or something, whatever it shows on the drawing, right?
It's in that range, yes.
So what is the dollar per square foot?
The dollar for the full summer is $40.
Oh, that's per seat, right? Is that per
Yeah.
seat? Okay.
So we've approximated that based on the footprint of tables for an outdoor dining area.
Okay.
So it's approximated.
Gotcha. The only thing I just want to make sure on this one, the fee I think is way too cheap, but I'm not going to fall on my sword on that one. I just want to make sure that from a policing standpoint, that everything that's in there is properly followed. It says there's not going to be cones, there's limits for how long someone can be parking there. I just want to make sure that it doesn't bleed out into other parts of the area again. So I just want to make sure that it's being properly enforced.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments pertaining directly to this? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Baumgart,
Yes.
Muntz,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Trilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
No.
That motion passes as well. Moving on to D, we have Plan Commission recommendation to approve a preliminary final plat of subdivision for 1416 Indiana Avenue subdivision.
Hi. Yes, the subject property is the site of the former lamp factory building at the northeast corner of Illinois and 13th Avenues. Permits have been issued to convert the building into 15 apartment units. The property owner, Bob Rasmussen, has requested approval of a preliminary and final plat of subdivision to plat the property and establish necessary easements. Plan Commission recommended approval on April 2nd, and there are no outstanding staff comments.
To be clear, this is, on this property, we formerly were looking at a plan called Crystal Loft, correct?
Correct. This is a different project called Indiana Place.
Just picking up, and tying the story together. Yes, Alderman Baumgart.
Forgive me, there were a bunch of citations that the previous owner was cited for. Whatever happened to those?
I know the property switched hands. Russ can speak.
Yeah, there were violations recorded against the property and liens in the amount of about $30,000, and the city collected those liens when the property sale occurred.
So we did?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Alderman Werball.
Move for approval.
Motion?
Second.
Motion by Werball, second by Trilla. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Baumgart,
Yes.
Muntz,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to recommendation to approve right-of-way license agreement between the City of St. Charles and RRR 214 LLC regarding Indiana Place, 1416 Indiana.
Yes. Certain building improvements for this project project into the city's Indiana Avenue right-of-way due to the location of the existing building very close to the property line. These improvements include 4 balconies, an awning, and 2 sidewalk segments. A license agreement has been prepared between the city and the property owner. The property owner will be responsible for maintaining the projections within the right-of-way in accordance with the approved plans. The property owner agrees to indemnify the city and provide insurance for the benefit of the city. The agreement will run with the land should it ever change hands, and staff recommends approval.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Werball, second by Weber. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Baumgart,
Yes.
Muntz,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes.
Thank you, that passes. Then moving on to H, discussion and direction for city staff to explore a best practices and possible locations for additional downtown public space.
Are we missing something? I think we skipped something,
Did
didn't we?
we, okay, so, oh no, we did we? I'm sorry, back up. F, Plan Commission recommendation to approve a PUD preliminary plan for First Street redevelopment, PUD Lot 6. Nope, that's pretty important.
Thank you. Last year, the city entered into an agreement with the new owner of the former Blue Goose property to reconstruct and expand the city-owned parking lot at the southwest corner of First and Illinois Street. Plans have been submitted proposing reconstruction of the parking lot, which is Lot 6 in the First Street PUD. Proposed is new asphalt, striping, landscaping, and lighting. There will be a total of 81 parking spaces. Per that agreement, the south portion of the lot will be parking for Whole Foods, with the northern 31 spaces public parking. Plans also include streetscaping improvements along the First and Illinois street lot frontages. The design follows the First Street streetscape design, includes angled street parking, paver bricks, planter beds, and lighting. Plan Commission reviewed the plans on April 2nd. They recommended approval subject to resolution of the staff comments that are listed in the staff report, and also consideration of the Commission's suggestions, which included removing the narrow strip of turf grass between the parking rows, some modifications to the tree species and locations, and also they recommended an additional pavement marking for physical demarcation to delineate the public versus private spaces.
I'm fine with this. I just would like to, Historic Preservation Commission made a recommendation for brick paver walkways continued for Whole Foods sidewalk. Is that part of this then? Is that?
Yes, they did make a recommendation, and we've noted that we will do our best to accommodate more brick pavers, but I understand there's an issue with procuring the matching brick that's used throughout First Street. So we're looking into whether there will be more pavers that can be used there.
Okay, all right. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Wirball, second by St.Charles. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Bongard,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Yem,
Yes.
Petrola,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now, H, discussion and direction for city staff to explore best practices and possible locations for additional downtown public space.
Thank you, Chair Letizione. We realized that what came out of COVID was the positive experience of outdoor dining and how much of a economic draw that has been for the city. So some of these discussions surrounding the previous three items, the first three items on the agenda, were really about magnification of that outdoor plaza space and potential other outdoor dining opportunities. So this agenda item is really driven by a need for staff to get some direction and guidance from the City Council on how and if we want to pursue any additional plaza spaces or any other outdoor dining opportunities. And really this is intended to be discussion-based. So we have some idea about other alternatives that we can explore as staff, including any official studies or consultants that we need to engage on this process.
I'll start off.
Alderman Weber.
One of the things, I've always been in favor of outdoor dining. I just wasn't using walnut, and from a permanent perspective, I'm still not a fan of using walnut myself. I just think it's too early to tell the traffic flow, how it's really going to affect the area, and just with all the commerce that's going on over there. I wanted to see and pursue having staff, I think maybe traffic study maybe has already been implemented or can get started on Riverside to see maybe we can look into possibly using some of Riverside at some point. That would be a suggestion that I would like to see as far as using the parking spots on Riverside for long-term plan. And then obviously we've already had people request to use areas on the northwest quadrant, I guess you could say. So I think that with what's going on now, we need to definitely have conversations and explore that. I don't know where the best place is, but obviously one of the things that has come out of all of this is I don't like that there's a divide between the east and the west now. That was something that was brought up last time. That's something that's never been an issue before in town, was the east and the west. I know from talking to a lot of business owners, there's been a little bit of headbutting because everyone feels different ways, and I don't like that. I'd like us to all be unified as one. So I feel like in order to do that, we have to try to spread this around and be fair to each area and start the process of having these discussions. I was the one that was kind of the catalyst to getting this on the agenda. because I don't want to go through these same iterations over and over and over again. I think we need to have a productive winter season here to kind of figure out some plans for long-term stuff in town, because I feel like we put ourselves in tricky scenarios where we do these short-term plans and then all these groups are fighting. I don't want to be about that anymore. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Can I just ask a question? So how quickly would it be feasible to get a data study? If I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about potentially taking parking off of Riverside and moving into the street as one idea.
Yes, just in front of like Flagship and Pollyanna's, yes.
Yeah, so, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of, but more so to Alderman Weber's point, what is a realistic timeline to turn around and get information? Because, as we look, across the city and similar questions come up, what's a realistic turnaround for somebody to say, hey, I have an idea, I have a question, it's temporary, it's, 60 days because I want to capture this, in the private sector, right? You've got this flash moment where you might want to do something, but how quickly can we realistically turn around to residents, business owners, and say, hey, give us a chance to look at it? Is that 3 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 years? Because it's an interesting concept that I know has been talked about the last couple of weeks, which, going into the weeds about, Walnut versus Riverside, but this idea that if you're going to push into Riverside and changing that traffic pattern, I'm really interested, how quickly can you get data to help us make, a decision on if that's something feasible?
So are you asking specifically in regard to Riverside?
I'm not, sorry. I'm not, I meant more so like how quickly, realistically, can we turn around something?
Yes, I'll answer that question in two different ways. The first of which being Riverside, just because of the nature of the traffic flow on that street, will require us to engage an engineering consultant to draft up a plan as well as a traffic study, just because of the impact on that. And once those two components are done, then we would need to engage police, fire, as well as public works in regards to public safety and access. So that street in particular is a good example of something that would require a little bit more resource and a little bit more time and energy, certainly subject to city council approval on any budgetary items that need to be addressed as well. So that type of situation would probably be closer to a 4 to 6 month scenario, depending on how quickly council approved any of those plans to get those implemented. Something like a Walnut, for example, is a local street. We have a little bit more control and access and can measure the impact a little bit differently than something like a Riverside, so that's something that we could probably turn around a little bit quicker in a couple months, as long as we had the proper approvals and reviews internally in place, but 2 to 3 months versus a 4 to 6 plus months.
Okay.
Heather, there were some plans that go back probably 10, 15, 20 years in regards, if not longer, in regards to the Arcata having an arts-type campus behind it, arts-type plaza, for lack of a better word, I guess. So I don't know if there's ways staff can look for those plans just to see. They might be old where it doesn't really give you a lot of description, but it'd be interesting to see how those worked out there. And then there's also some plans that go back probably about 5 to 8 years maybe 5 years in regards to going back to Councilmember Weber's comments about the Northwest Quadrant in regards to creating a plaza outside of Cedar, kind of backing up against the businesses along the north side of West Main Street. So just to start with those two, if you could find plans, it'd be interesting, especially I know there's pretty solid concept plans for the Northwest Quadrant that would be extremely helpful, and it might be a good starting point.
And in regards to the Arcata, are you referencing the comprehensive plan that discussed that?
It was either comp or the strategic plan, one of the two, yes. Thank you.
Other comments? I have a comment, actually. Talking about public space and kind of where my point of view comes from in this, because I've had a lot of experience running a business in downtown St. Charles, and I will also say that if it wasn't for the public space in St. Charles, in the life that we have down here, Whole Foods wouldn't be moving to St. Charles. It was a selling point. And with that, there's the larger scope of, what are the things that we do to make our downtown healthy? And public spaces is one of the big things that can do that. Because if you go back through, when we're talking about the downtown partnership, it had a lot to say about, how much our city has recovered over the last 15 years, because it's easy to forget. We did not have a healthy downtown. Our downtown wasn't driving the ideas of what St. Charles it was. It wasn't what was attracting people into St. Charles. And now we're going in great direction. And we have to realize how vital our public space is, how vital it is to have a vibrant and live downtown. And I think with that, during COVID, we learned how much our residents appreciate, outdoor dining, feeling like it's nearly a gift that the city gave them, when originally we were thinking that the public plaza wasn't going to be used for outdoor dining. Well, we understood that we have this great space, and the highest and best use was to allow, these public-private partnerships, outdoor dining, getting more life out there. I would like to see, creation of policy, and I think we need help with that, because we should be able to make what we think and what we have learned and what we know about creating a vibrant city, that should become our policy so we can lean on those things. I think it'll help answer a lot of questions. We need ways to make sure that we maintain ourselves as a stable and healthy city, and I think that this is one of the greatest additions. Like, the things that we've done on First Street are great, and I think that we have more opportunity in a lot of places, and I think we need help kind of discovering that, but I want us to stay focused. And when it comes to, like, permanency, we have to have policy decisions and establish policy on how we feel about these public spaces, how we recognize where there is, good opportunity for highest and best use to be folks, and make them, to use them as public space, and make that enduring. But we also have an issue with, because of the tip on the First Street Plaza, we think of 100-day licenses other places, where when we're making changes and we intend them to be permanent, we need to have the businesses that are investing in these, even in the First Street Plaza as much as possible, understand that we have permanent intentions. It is safe to invest and integrate what they're doing, because that's what adds the stability. That's what allows great businesses to come in and join our community. I think that those are some things that are important. I definitely think that we need help. I'd love to see recommendations about people who can help find those spaces, facilitate them, lead a little discussion to help bring our ideas together so we can reach some of those decisions, because we have to reach stability. I think that is what is going to help us as much as anything. And I've seen how much those spaces and those ideas are what bring, like, entities, people, ideas into town that are going to help carry us into the next 50 years well. Alderman Wood.
I think one of the most basic things needs to happen first, and that is to consult with the aldermen that represent the ward. I think when things are put together behind the scenes and the aldermen find out after the drawing's put together is really unfortunate. So that's step one, very basic, any ward, whatever ward it is. Because when something's done in your ward, it impacts the residents that live there. So it's just irresponsible, in my opinion. Second, First Street Plaza. The construction fence is still up. It's still not open, yet we're talking about another plaza. I don't think we should be talking about any plaza until we see how successful the first plaza is. Again, I just think it's irresponsible. Step three, I don't think we should be closing arbitrarily public streets with no traffic study, no community engagement. It's interesting. If you want to do a block party, you have to get every signature on that street from every owner to close the street. But here, you can just arbitrarily close a street for 7 months without even consulting with the residents. That is completely dismissive of the residents' concerns. Very unfortunate. Four, why not incentivize businesses to invest in their own outdoor dining? Rooftops, whatever it takes, let's work with them to make something positive happen that's not going to have a negative impact on the residents in the surrounding neighborhoods. And if you're looking for a prime public space to open plazas and whatever, the former police station site is a fantastic location for an outdoor amphitheater, the Batavia Boardwalk, an outdoor plaza for farmers market. I'm all for it. I think we can do some great things over there, but I just think this was really a missed opportunity to sit down with the group that is looking to do something permanent and keep the conversations going in good faith. And I just find it very unfortunate, but those are my points.
Thank you. So how many parking spaces have we lost on Walnut now?
You're talking about with the between the
The ones
license
that are
agreement?
For 4A, how many spaces?
10?
Losing 10 spaces. Now we're talking about doing the same thing on Riverside, so that's 20 spaces. How are they gonna be replaced?
I just want to clarify that the closure that was voted on tonight is a temporary closure just for this
Okay,
season.
but
And
still,
if there
it-
was a permanent, that would, in theory, replace that temporary closure. So there wouldn't be both of those situations unless council directed us to do that.
Right, but where are we gonna put those 10 spots for the
Those
summer?
10 would be back if Walnut was reopened and
I understand, but
Riverside
where are
was
they
closed.
gonna be replaced now? Our traffic study said that we can't afford to lose any parking downtown. Now we're losing 10 spots. We are losing for the summer. I'm not worried about after the lease is up. I'm worried about the summertime, which is a prime time for people to come downtown and park. But now we're losing 10 spots. We're going backwards, okay? I don't think this is thought through very well. Again, I'm disappointed that with the vote tonight too. We are very dismissive of the residents that live next to Walnut. We've been done a lot better.
Other comments? Alderman Vaughn.
I'm not certain where I'd like to start on this. To first just address a comment about the parking study, it did not say we can't afford to lose 10 spots. So I just want to make that very clear. I'd also like to correct the record that nothing was done behind anybody's back. In fact, there were conversations that were had and outreach that was made and dismissed. So I just want to make that clear also. In my opinion, with this motion or this conversation where we're asking to have some sort of a comprehensive plan, we have one that is almost 10 years old or over 10 years old, and those things do age out. I think that one of the things that St. Charles hasn't always been the best at is looking further into the future as to what we need in order to continue success for who we want to attract as residents for our city. People retire and move away, and then we also have new developments that come in and people move into the city, and we need to decide who we are trying to attract to encourage the type of community that we want economically and otherwise. And in order to do that, we have to understand what it is that they want. And when we look around the country and we see the things that are being built, that are successful cities, we do see a lot of walkability. We see people that enjoy outdoor spaces, and we see a loss of these things that people consider third places where they can be outdoors. And I would really like to have us have real honest conversations about those rather than focusing on who is creating these things or maybe who specifically they believe might be benefiting from something as opposed to the thing itself. I heard a comment made, something about providing public spaces or providing fairness to businesses. I'd like to provide public spaces to the residents because that's who's going to use them, and that's what I'd like to see. I know that some people don't agree that that's what's happening, and some people have a different viewpoint on that, but that's my personal goal is public space for the people that live in this city to utilize, to enjoy, and to be around each other instead of zipping by each other in cars, to actually be around each other on foot, on bikes, enjoying our beautiful city outdoors.
So I spent, and I want to bring this back to item 4H, which is talking about where we're going forward, not backwards. So I spent quite a bit of time on the phone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with Ward 2 residents asking specifically this topic of, what are you looking for? What do you like? And the response was overwhelmingly, the more things that you can do around town that can replicate the vibe and the energy that we think is going to be on First Street, we're all for. Whether it's a street, whether it's a park, whether it's a plaza, hey, bring it. And I hear the perspective of somebody that's one street over. That's very, very different than somebody lives on, Kine Trail or Blackhawk Trail. I get that. But I'm more interested right now in how this group is going to move forward with this question, because I get it. This room is extremely divided on where we go from here, and what staff is looking for is that we put together, you know, don't get mad, like a commission or workshops or things or meetings, because this body ultimately has all the I'm so sorry. This body has all the power and authority, and you don't want to go, but it's also going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult when you jump into an issue like this to find overwhelming support 9-1, let's do it. You're going to always have detractors, 2, 3, 4, and does that mean that we don't do anything? That means, you know, the residents in the second ward, their feedback on this issue, it's not as valuable as somebody else somewhere. Or a business owner in one spot has to be weighed more. And I'm not saying that any of those perspectives aren't valid and there isn't truth. Two things can be true in this, but what I'm going to go back to staff, as you look on April 8th, what do we have to do moving forward, effective tomorrow? So to Alderman Weber's point, that this gets better for the long term, not worse.
One of the things that if I can suggest, is perhaps engaging a consultant to look comprehensively at the city to identify some key spaces that may make sense for some of these plazas, and especially analyzing it by quadrant to ensure that it is spaced out and spread out, because not that I'm opposed to having a commission to do this, but somebody looking at it objectively from a planning perspective may be a little bit more effective regarding land use and opportunity and access and traffic flows than, you know, just several ideas.
So, as somebody who's in consulting, I have no problem with consultants, but I really think this has to be led by some combination of people that are sitting up here and people that are sitting out there. And I don't want to lean on a consultant walking in telling me, well, this is what you can do, or this is what we think is feasible. The reality is, if you can't find a strong majority of people up here and working with the group of people that are up there of a vision that people can get on, not the vision that everybody's going to love, because the reality is you're always going to have somebody who says, I don't like it. What do we have to do on April 9th to start moving this thing down? Because we're not the only community around that says, hey, you know what, outdoor dining was really good. Like, it's competitive, it's tough out there, and you have people that can spend their money, spend their weekends in a lot of different places, and this body changes over. You know, I don't need to remind people of, you know, where you were 2 years ago, last year, moving forward. Who knows where you're going to be a year or two from now? But setting forth a vision that people can get behind, whether they 100% support it or not, that's what I'm most interested in. That's item 4H, not, you know, whether somebody liked the previous vote or what they want to go, you know, 16 rounds about. So if there's a way that whatever you need from us, you know, and the people that are sitting in that room to start charting that path forward, that's what I'm most interested in.
Yeah, I think if the direction is to explore viable, permanent solutions to that, there's a way to accomplish that with what you're saying. The expertise is still needed there, because there are some times that, you know, people look at something and think it may be a great location for something, but for a variety of reasons regarding that planning perspective, it may not be viable. So I just want to make sure that we are engaging the correct sides in both elements to get to that point. So if that is the will of council, we can certainly explore some hybrid model or some opportunity to accomplish exactly what you're saying. But that's exactly what we're asking for tonight. If that's the direction, then allow us to do the research and gather the recommendations to present to City Council to accomplish that goal.
Does this require a motion?
No, there's
I kind of, what I'm hearing kind of resonates with me. The hybrid model, sorry, Ryan, I don't know, I want to leave the emotion out of it. If we can just leave it data-driven mostly, that's probably the best, right? So could we, this is a total, you may not know the answer, but I mean, a consulting idea, can we do consulting light and then there's a deeper dive, and obviously the cost would change, right?
Yeah, and I think based on that feedback tonight, that's exactly what we'll do. As the next step is getting some perhaps levels of engagement and the type of plans that we can formulate, so that we know if we do a very minimal level of just identify the locations that would be feasible for a variety of reasons, and then bring that to potentially some other outside group at that point, but we could take that step by step.
I think if you start bringing the humans into the, you know, other than these humans, like if we get into the weeds, we get into
but I'm going to say
hatred, you know.
I'm going to go out, and if Rita were sitting here next to me, she would say, this is your moment. This is in the 3+ years that I've been sitting up here, this has been a blind spot and a challenge that we all have to wear of, we tackle things as they pop up on the agenda or they come based on somebody, a petitioner saying, hey, I've got this and I want to get in. We're not doing, it will be messy. It will be painful, but you know what? It'll be that much better on the other side because you have worked through it. You have, I'm not saying don't listen to consultants and don't bring in experts. Of course you have to. But if an expert tells me that I can build a hotel on the river and it's deep enough and it's strong enough and it's great, that might not be what the community wants. That might not be what's best for the downtown footprint. I don't want to lean on a consultant telling me flat out that you can do this, therefore we should. I want it to be first and foremost driven by these two groups that says this is where we're going, and leaving room to say, you know what, 2 years from now, half this group may not be here. And that's okay because it's not a finished document. But whether it's making a motion to create, you know, I'm a big fan of the task force, if it's creating whatever we need to do to move forward so that it doesn't go back on the shelf and then a year from now some petitioner comes up and says, hey, I want to do X, and we're right back in the same spot.
So, okay. So I highly doubt that a outdoor dining consultant's going to talk about hotels on the river, but let's cross that bridge when we get to it. But I would be an advocate for getting a light consulting, you know, to pursue a light or more comprehensive consulting, data-driven analysis, and then we can start discussing. And I just, okay, so Ryan, to your comments, like, you're asking, like, what do you want to do? Do you want a consultant or do you not?
I'm not against a consultant, but I don't want to lean because, listen, we had a traffic study up here. If you ask 5 people what the traffic study says, I guarantee it's a different answer than the other 5 people. That was $40,000 for a traffic study that this body can't agree on.
Okay, we're having a discussion between 2 people. It's a great discussion, but I want to see if anybody else has anything they want to add to anything they've heard too.
Literally right in the middle of my sentence.
Yeah.
Just
go ahead, Alderman Paul.
Yeah, I just want to thank Alderperson Weber for kind of bringing this to the table for all of us to get some thought behind it. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think one term that I keep hearing a little bit is kind of vision. So what is going to be an overall vision of this? And I think that's something that, as David was saying, through our consultant, I think is a positive step. But ultimately, the vision of the 10 of us collectively, what we would like to see go across, I don't know if that's ever been stated. I don't know if anybody ever even knows that moving forward. I think that's something I'd like to see city staff kind of focus on with that as well. But thankful Alderperson Weber again bringing this up and getting this to the table because it's much overdue. Thank you.
Well, I have something, Ms. Squire, there's one thing that I want to check. With a consultant, do you think that there's any chance that we hired an expert and that public opinion or the opinion and thoughts of council wouldn't be part of their consideration?
No, that is certainly something we could do, is make a public engagement portion of that. And really the reason that I'm suggesting or discussing engagement of a consultant is because there has to be a starting point to get together a commission or a task force, not to say that that's not going to be a very important component of that, but to do that at the outset before there's any data there or analysis on potential locations might just be a little bit backwards, because then we spend our time and energy focusing on locations that are not viable for a number of reasons. And at least if we start with some data points about why those are viable, that starts the discussion of where to focus those efforts.
So let
me see if I understand you correctly, because I have a question. So you believe that we can hire a consultant and we need them to lead our discussion, but they would facilitate for us instead of a lot of talk without the expertise?
Correct, and I'll compare it to the strategic plan and the public engagement on that portion of it. It was wrapped into it. There was a number of tools that were outreach to the public, websites, open houses, things of that nature that we could also use for that.
Sounds professional. Okay.
I think it's getting twisted a little bit. My point, though, is trying to find a common ground or a common direction that is ultimately driven by the community and the people elected to serve. I'm not saying, you know, having an expert isn't part of the process. Of course it is, because I'm not, you know, in engineering or whatever. But that's the place that you start with. That's if you can find consensus saying, hey, you know what, we actually all agree that we kind of want to head in that direction. We differ a little bit when we get to this point. versus having somebody collect all this data and then turn it around and basically tell you, like, it starts with the people that are up here and out there of, hey, what do you want? Which way do you want to go? Because if we all agree nobody wants to build a Ferris wheel, we don't have to spend a lot of time listening to if that's viable or not. Like, we can move in that direction.
Yeah, and that's sort of the purpose of this discussion tonight, is to get a consensus from council on what direction we want to go, so staff can start to explore those options and bring those recommendations without knowing what that collective vision is. We don't have any focus to actually get those implemented.
Yeah, like, I don't want to hear a consultant telling me, well, here's the 6 streets that are most viable to close for temporary dining. Like, that's not the question I'm asking. The question is this the direction you want to go? And if the answer is yes, great, then at what level do you want to start to go? And that's my fear with going into a consultant, is they're going to look for a very black and white question and then try and answer that, where we're not quite sure what questions we want to answer, which direction.
Well, I think before the public is engaged, there needs to be some direction from council as well.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Stephen.
I would just say between now and the next P&D committee meeting, maybe we should have staff at least kind of explore some of this stuff that we're talking about. And I think also we need to start probably putting together some questions that maybe we would have, or discussion points that we would have, that we can kind of narrow down so that next P&D committee, we can be hitting some of these high points.
Scope discussion seems good.
No, and pardon my ignorance, but I've heard them mentioned by a number of my colleagues about the comprehensive plan that obviously is old. And to Alderman Baumgarten, I'm a consultant too to certain things, but to go back and take a look at that as the starting point. So somewhere that was kind of an agreed upon plan. If you bring in, to Alderman Petrello's point, a consultant light and say, this is what we had, is it 7 or 10 years ago, it doesn't matter, but there was something there. And say, so that was the to-be state at that point, or as is. Here's what we want to get to be, and kind of help us down that path. And I think, first of all, public engagement would be huge. You know, just the people I talk to about this issue and others is, they have their ideas to envision. So how do we incorporate those into what we as the group up here have to do for the betterment of the whole city? And I always look at the 4 quadrants. I mean, we spent a lot of time on these 2, but what do we have north of Route 64? We've got all 4 of those that, in my mind, somewhere down the road, a comprehensive plan could say, this is what vibrant downtown St. Charles looks like. And if it takes 10 years from now, to Alderman Wentz's point, we're bringing new people in. And that not only helps us not as a city, but it grows a revenue base with sales tax. It gets people involved in the city. People want to be here. And I think, at least in my opinion, is that's what we're shooting for if we're looking for a vision. I appreciate staff's input and whatever, and I don't want to prescribe any way to do it, but that might be just a starting point to dust that thing old off and say, here's where we started, but it's old. So, thank you.
Other comments?
You know, Bob brings up a good point. Can we, from a staff's perspective, Heather, what do you think about, why don't we just, you know, take the, like you said, take the comprehensive plan off the shelf and just redevelop it and include those discussions in it?
That's one of the discussion points we had at a staff level, was revising or doing a sub-area plan, something of that nature, and taking that old plan. I think it's over 10 years old now, isn't it, Russ? Yeah, so it's fairly outdated, and a lot of the things in there have changed. So it's certainly one option that we can take a look at. And I think maybe to Alderperson Weber's point, maybe adding this as a standing agenda item, at least for next P&D meeting, to have maybe some more focus points. Everybody has a little bit of time to gather their thoughts on it and think through the direction, might be a little bit helpful, given that I think there's just some questions and uncertainty about exactly what direction to point staff in tonight.
I think this should start, I agree, light consulting, whatever is fine, but it should always start with community engagement. The people that live in the adjacent neighborhoods, like if you're on First Street Plaza, you got commercial property, it's a little bit different build out over there. But, you know, if it's not in your ward and somebody on Peck Road or Kirk Road, a lot of these things down here are not going to impact their quality of life, getting home, parking, things of that nature. It may not seem like a big deal to some people, but I can assure you it is for the people that live in the adjacent neighborhood. So I'm all for finding additional outdoor dining spaces. I think it's great, but I want to be very sensitive to what we're doing and how we do it, and really focus on community engagement, because if get a consultant and say, yeah, you know what, closing down this street would be great, and you have 300 people that say, well, wait a minute, this is my collector street to get home or whatever, we got a problem. So I want to be careful about how we plan it and how we do it, and I know I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but I get where you want to go with it, but I just want to be sensitive to the people, especially when they're adjacent to residential neighborhoods. So that's my point.
Discussion? Have you got what you needed?
I believe so.
Thank you very much. So that closes 4H, which brings us to public comment. Do you have anybody who'd like to make public comment? Please just step forward and just provide your name.
Hi, I'm Paul McMahon. I live at 3rd Avenue in Chestnut, so by Potawatomi Park. The thing that I'm hearing from all you folks, it's hilarious that we went to a comprehensive plan meeting 2 years ago at the Baker Center. The Baker Center was full, it was packed, and it was really well done. You brought in a consultant from Colorado. They asked people, what do you like, what do you dislike, and it broke up into small groups, and it was really well done, I thought. And the biggest takeaway from that was that the pride of St. Charles is the Fox River. The whole point was to preserve and protect the Fox River. And weeks after August of 2 years ago, when the comprehensive plan saying that we want to preserve the Fox River, then the 85-foot tall, 85,000 square feet of concrete hotel was planned for the river that was real close to being approved. So there was a disconnect between the money that was spent for the comprehensive plan and what was actually happening. But I thought the comprehensive plan at the Baker was really well done. But it seemed like it was ignored. And that was tons of, a large amount of the city was there. So there was lots of public engagement. It was designed by a consultant group that asked questions. People gave their opinions. I think that can work if it's paid attention to, and you spend money on it, you should pay attention to it.
Just as a clarification, that was actually the strategic plan, not a comprehensive plan update.
And that was 2 years ago. And what was the point of that?
That is the city's guiding document on all of our vision and the guidance for staff on how to implement that vision from City Council.
Okay, so what about that still exists? What about that still makes sense?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is time for public comment, and to get too much into discussion, I would ask you to continue it after the meeting. I'm sure all of us would be happy to have a
My point is
discussion.
that exists, and you can use that as a model.
I agree, but I think that, the city administrator kind of addressed that. I think that there's longer conversation. I don't want to take up time that's public comment for discussion, but I think it's a reasonable question. And please find somebody after the meeting. Do we have other comments? No other comments? Okay, that closes public comment. Comments from staff or elected officials? Seeing none, then I'm looking for
Motion to
adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Munn, second by Gem. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.